So continuing down the road of being able to actually use these structure variables for something, what I want to do here is show off one way of defining a type that refers to a specific type of structure. I don't like this style. I actually call this the old style structure definition. And you'll see in the next video the type that I prefer. So the reason I don't like this is that when we're done, we'll be able to write something like this. Every time I want a variable that's one of these orders, I will declare it of type struct order. That's actually the full name of its type. It's got a space in it, struct order. The reason why I don't like this very much is that it does make order, which is a structure of some sort, it makes order feel like a second-class citizen. I'm used to declaring variables by writing int x or float y. They have a single name. And it's true that there are some types that contain a space, but in general, it's the type name and then the variable name. I don't have to distinguish, oh, it's a structure type. Having to write it like this makes it feel like order isn't a first-class citizen of the world of types. And I feel like it's really easy to go from there into developing a sort of bias like, oh, I don't know if I want to create a structure here. It's really important that we be able to view all data the same way. It helps me. I mean, C is a bit of a tough language to learn. One of the best things it has going for it is that the rules are always uniform. If I pass something into a function, what I am passing is a copy of a value, for example. That's true of structures just like it is of ints. And I feel like having the word struct here might create a bit of a mental block. And I think in general, the programming community follows the same convention I do. They may not have the same reasons, but it's useful to learn this style because there is one place later where it's going to come back and we're going to need it. So the task here is first, define something so that I can begin declaring variables of type struct order. Okay, so I'm going to do that up above main. It turns out the thing I'm going to be defining is scoped, and that means I could declare it inside of main. The reason it's typically done at the top of your file is because that way you can use it in other functions, not just inside of main. So the way we declare this is we write struct, and then we give the type a name. Notice how the name comes at the beginning of my definition. At the end of my definition, I'm going to put a semicolon. Unlike before, I'm not declaring any particular variables here. What I'm doing is I'm defining a structure type that I'm going to use later. And then on the inside, I give the names of the members. Okay, so I've got, that was a funny indentation. Okay, we'll try that again. I've got my order ID, just like before. I've got my price, just like before. And I've got my customer name, which has length 101. All right, so what I've done here is I have created a new type called struct order. And it refers to a structure that contains an int, a float, and a customer name. And then down here in main, I am declaring a single variable ord of that type. And then I can use that variable ord. It is of a structured type, so the type of ord is struct order. As I said in the previous video, it is wrong to say the type of ord is struct. No, it isn't. It is struct order. You could have lots of different kinds of structure types in your program. It's significant that you differentiate between them. And just like before, I am copying in various values. Order ID equals 6, the order price is $18.70, and then I'm copying in the customer's name. And just like before, I am printing them all out. Before I go further, we'll try compiling and running this to make sure I haven't forgotten something. Okay, I did forget something. I forgot string.h. I'll try and remember to make that update between video 2 and video 3 to the next step. Okay, so we'll try that. And then we'll try running this. And there it is. And a note about diagrams. I'm not going to belabor this because I want to move on to the next format pretty quick here. But on my diagram, if I have this variable named ord, so there's main. And I made a variable in main called ord. There it is. The type of ord is struct order. And if I do want to draw one of these things on my diagram, it is important that inside of this, I draw in all of the different members. So there's the price. Whoops, actually, I'll do ID first. So I've got order ID, and that's an int. And I've got price, and that's a float. And just like before, I also have this string, and I promise that if we need to do really detailed tracing questions on exams and stuff, I will not make it have a 101 element array because I know you don't want to have to draw that on your diagram any more than I do. So I am going to abbreviate the name cust name, and that is an array of type char. And it's important to understand that the variable ord is all three of these things packaged up into one convenient package. And one of the reasons that's so helpful is because it means it becomes really easy to begin passing this data around, including into functions. And that's the next step we want to go through. So task number 3, convert this print statement to a function called print order. It's reasonable that I might actually want to print out orders a lot if I'm working in a program that trades in these order objects. So I want to create a function here. And I suppose what I want semantically is something like this. I want to be able to call print order, and I want to pass in my variable ord, which is of type struct order. And if you think back, the rules are consistent. In C, if I wanted to pass in a variable of type struct order, the function in its signature needs to accept an argument of type struct order. And that is valid. So I write, let's see, void print order. I take as my argument struct order. I'm going to call it something else because I want to make sure it's clear that the names don't mean anything here. So the type of the parameter is struct order. The name of the parameter is the order. And now I want to print that out. So I'm going to recycle the print statement I already had. And I guess I will also indent it. And then I just have to replace the variable name. And we can see it still works. I could even call it over and over again to prove my point. Not like that. So one note, we'll elaborate on this later, but one note is that just like an int or a float, the thing that I'm passing in when I call print order, I'm passing in my variable ord. And we notice I'm not passing in a pointer, I'm passing in the original. I'm not passing in ampersand ord. That means what I am passing in is a photocopy, just like if I pass in an int or a float. So when I call print order, the thing that print order receives is a photocopy of the original variable. That means that if I modify this inside of the print order function, the modification doesn't get reflected outside the function. Now, we'll come back to that. That obviously is a major point. We'll come back to that in a couple of videos. For now, what we care about is there is one way that we've seen now of being able to define this type that refers to a specific configuration of structure. So I've created a type called struct order, and that contains an order ID, a price, and a customer name, and I'm using it in various places in this program. There it is there it is there. I'm using it in main and in some other function, and I am able to seamlessly pass it back and forth. And just to be absolutely clear about this, for the rest of the course, outside of that one video you just watched, the video right before this one, we should not be trying to really define structures directly as a single variable using this notation. It's allowed. Generally, there is no reason to do this. We should always be giving the type a name before using it, not creating a one-off variable of that type. The reason I gave was that the type is cumbersome. That's certainly true. There are a couple of other implications that are avoided by having it this way. Now, that said, I'm still a bit annoyed by this issue of the type doesn't look like a first-class citizen. It's a struct type. I would like to be able to declare variables just called order. I want to refer to the type order just like any other type like int or float, and we'll talk about that in the next video.